During the Week 1 NFL games, we had some players absolutely ball out, and that, of course, caused a reaction in my rest of season fantasy football rankings. In this video, what we'll be talking about is heading into Week 2 here, what players are making massive jumps in a positive direction here up my rankings list, players that I was lower on coming into this season, or not even necessarily low on, but just proved themselves at a higher level here heading into this next week's games and have me feeling even more confident and optimistic about their outlooks for the rest of this season. So if you're looking for some help with your Week 2 and beyond fantasy football lineups and teams, make sure you click that subscribe button here to the SFS channel. I'm posting fantasy football content every single day of the week, and I'm here to help you guys crush your leagues this season. So of course, the comment section are always an open space to ask anything you've got for me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. So with that being said, let's jump into the video and talk through my first wide receiver in this episode that's skyrocketing up my rankings. Of course, as I did say in the intro, we've got a ton of Week 2 fantasy football advice up on the channel, so if that's stuff you're looking for, check that out after this video. But AJ Brown is the first player that is definitely probably my most significant riser on the rankings for this week. I'll be transparent with you guys. I was very skeptical of A.J. Brown coming into this season because I was worried about the quarterback play. I was worried about the volume as well, and I didn't know how things would play out here. Now, I do have still some concerns here for Brown heading into Week 2 and beyond, but he really addressed the number one thing I was concerned with this past week, and that was volume. A.J. Brown hauled in, he didn't haul in, but he had 13 targets headed his direction. He hauled in 10 of those for 10 receptions and had an insane 44.8% target share in Week 1. That is totally unheard of. Now, somehow, that was only second last week. I couldn't believe it wasn't first, but someone did surpass him and inevitably have a higher target share than he did. This number is not sustainable, though, so that's the one thing I do kind of want to preface here and emphasize. While I'm really, getting more positive on A.J. Brown here entering into Week 2, things are going to have to change here. They're not going to be able to throw almost half of their passes to one player every single week. Defenses are going to pick that up and just totally take him away from this team. So they have to become a little bit more well-versed. Devontae Smith needs some touches. Dallas Goedert needs some touches. But Week 1 was the A.J. Brown show, over 150 yards receiving. He totally balled out and is someone that in a good matchup against Detroit really proved himself to me. So if he continues getting that many targets, we're talking somewhere between 8 and 10 looks a game. That is phenomenal territory for me. But like I said, in that 13 target window is probably something that's not the most sustainable number in the world. The last thing I do want to talk about here is the quarterback play, Jalen Hurts. I watched every snap of that Eagles offensive football game twice because I really wanted to break down that situation and really get things right here. I was super impressed with the Eagles offensive coaching staff, their ability to get AJ the football at the line of scrimmage, get him with the ball in his hands running out in space. Jalen Hurts did have some bad throws downfield, one in particular. I think he probably could have hit AJ Brown for a touchdown. Instead, underthrew him by like 2-3 yards, and he had to come back to the ball and actually fall down to catch it. But still, despite the fact that Jalen Hurts has his inefficiencies as a passer, it looks like the usage and the style that they're implementing A.J. Brown into in this offense is going to work here for the 2022 season. Gabe Davis is the next wide receiver I want to talk about in today's video. Gabe Davis took on the Rams on opening night, scored the first touchdown of the 2022 NFL season. And while I'm still expecting some inconsistencies here from Gabriel Davis, the quarterback play alone and the fact that he was so productive so early in that contest while it was still a close game was really encouraging to see. I've been someone that's been a bit worried about the dependability on a weekly basis of a Gabe Davis for the simple fact that obviously, you want to know what you're getting here out of someone that could be a wide receiver 2 on a running back heavy roster, maybe even a wide receiver 1 for some teams that went really robust running back. So that's still something that the jury is a little bit out on, but I do want to talk about some spots where Gabe Davis made major leaps and bounds for, obviously, it's just 1 week, again, very small sample size for all these players, but I still want to talk through this because obviously I want to get you guys as much information about all of the players involved in fantasy football as I can here. So the biggest jump that knocked off the page to me, or that jumped off the page, was from 49.3%, having a 49.3% snap share in 2021, meaning that for just barely under 50% of the Bills' offensive plays, Gabriel Davis was on the sideline. So, that number took a massive jump here this past week in week 1 up to 98%. So literally doubling the amount of time that he's on the football field. His play time has 2x'd. That is huge. Just having him out there gives you that much more opportunity to see a target. Obviously, we saw him haul on a deep pass last week. We saw him, like I said, catch that first touchdown pass of the season. He only had 5 targets last week and a 16.1% target share, but that number did jump by about 6% as well from 10.1% in 2021. So across the board, positive numbers. We're seeing growth from Gabe Davis, hopefully finally realizing his potential here. I like him in his matchup this week against Tennessee. I think he's got a high ceiling again for as long as the Titans can keep that a game. I think Davis will still be a heavy factor in that passing offense for the Buffalo Bills. Before we get into our third player here, if you guys are enjoying, make sure to smash that like button. It helps me out a ton here. Like I said, drop your questions in the comment section below and check out Underdog Fantasy using code SFS when you sign up and deposit $10 or more. That's going to get you double your money, and they're going to let you keep that money to play with. Play in-game props. You can do little mini drafts for the main slate games, where you can play a simple daily fantasy lineup for, like in this instance, week 2 in a vacuum. You can draft a team with a pool like 6 other players for just a few bucks and compete against them for just one Sunday. It's super, super fun stuff. And when you do that, you're going to get the all-access pass on my website completely free. Again, just using code SFS. The link is in the description of today's video, or you can scan the QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen to take you to my website. And there's more information on the homepage of that platform. You just got to click the little Underdog banner there, and it'll take you over there, and hopefully should manually install code SFS. But otherwise, make sure that's in there, and you're going to get access to my whole website, personalized fantasy advice from me. So you're going to join our community Discord server. I'm going to contact you via email address, get your Discord server username, and then you're going to basically be able to ask me questions 24/7 about your team. I can set your lineup for you every week and do everything in between, trade advice, whatever the case is. So here to be a tool and a resource for you guys. Again, code SFS on Underdog Fantasy is the best way to do that this season. Get to access through the Super Bowl, so your entire fantasy season, and heck, I'll give you DFS advice as well if you want to play some betting throughout the season and during the the NFL playoffs. So Michael Thomas is the third name up on the board here, taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is rising up my rankings quite significantly here this week. I was a Michael Thomas skeptic. I was going to be cautiously optimistic. That's really the word I should have used there, because I did think that there was a situation where he could be kind of a low-end wide receiver 1, a Keenan Allen level producer, but I was also a bit cautious because we haven't seen him play football in 2 years. I think that's a fair assessment and argument to make there. And in 61% of the Saints offensive snaps this week, that's all Michael Thomas was out there for. He scored 2 receiving touchdowns. He was a guy that was very impressive on 2 goal line fade routes against a very good NFL cornerback in A.J. Terrell. I was very pleased with what I saw. Again, in limited snaps, he was on a pitch count dealing with an injury. I believe that was a hamstring injury. So very positive things from Michael Thomas. If he continues to get those really valuable red zone looks, that's a huge thing as well. He is the biggest wide receiver body this team has on the offensive side of the ball, at least in that starting lineup. So I'm, again, very optimistic going forward as that snap share continues to increase here, and he starts to get more routine first, second, and third down passing looks as well. I saw a really funny meme this weekend. It was Michael Thomas, but it was his face on Ant-Man, and it was like renamed Slant Man. It was one of the funniest things I've seen all week. But once you get some of those signature slant routes running again, we'll be in full business here, a PPR play, and potentially a low-end wide receiver 1 or a high-end wide receiver 2 down the stretch of this season if he can stay healthy here. Of course, we're hoping that that's the case. But what I did want to say, in that 61% snap share, he was able to have a 25% target share. So that shows you how involved and how much Jameis Winston was feeding him the football when he was actually out there. Had 8 targets. So again, that accumulated to 25% or 1/4 of the Saints' offensive passing attempts. And like I said, as he gets healthier, that snap share percentage is going to increase, and good things will stem from that. Michael Pittman here is the 4th name that is rising up my rankings here. I was optimistic. I was very hopeful. We had some really good numbers that we dove into this offseason when analyzing Michael Pittman's fantasy status for 2022, namely Matt Ryan's deep ball passing accuracy. He was top 2 in deep ball passing accuracy and deep ball catchable pass rate. Those were 2 things that I think were really lacking with Carson Wentz and his inconsistencies. And that really, Matt Ryan dialed into Mike Pittman here in week 1, really showed that he's the top dog and the alpha receiver for this offense. He isn't practicing as of Thursday, so that's a little scary for fantasy owners. Check in on Friday to see his practice status. You can probably just check it in your native fantasy app. But Michael Pittman here balled out week 1, had a 13 target performance, a player who had 9 receptions on those 13 targets. He was 4th in total targets for the week, number 4 in routes run. They did go to overtime, so that might be a little bit inflated there, but still worth noting. And he was second, top 2, this is really important here, in red zone opportunities. That means he had 3 targets come inside the 20-yard line for Matt Ryan this week. One of them cashed in for a touchdown. If you're getting opportunities to score TDs, that is a big deal, especially from Matt Ryan, who historically, the last handful of seasons, has been a very poor passer in the red zone. I couldn't believe the lack of urgency this team had to hand Jonathan Taylor the football inside the 20. They were throwing the ball. They were airing things out here. And I hope that Frank Reich and that staff is a little bit more cleaned up here in week 2. I thought that there were some major flaws with their approach to that game against a Texans team that I thought was in a severe talent deficit. But nonetheless, Michael Pittman showed me he can be a top 12 wide receiver for this season. I've actually got him as a wide receiver 3 in one of my leagues. It's freaking awesome. I've got Jamar Chase, Mike Evans, and Michael Pittman rolling in the lineup. It's a 2-flex league. We've got Hollywood Brown as our second flex. Feeling good about that one. The running backs are a little bit light in the loafers, but we've got some insane upside at those wide receiver spots. So if you've got Pittman on your team, you're feeling good about yourself right about now. And I think you should continue to, because again, those deep ball attempts are going to be very valuable. And he's continuing to do intermediate work as well and have a high volume of opportunities. And then finally here, Christian Kirk. This is a guy I had as a must-own player during draft season this year, and he's really capitalizing on his ceiling. It's been 1 week. It's, again, it's a small sample size. I know someone in the comment section is going to be like, oh, well, you've only played 1 game here. Whatever, okay? We're seeing positive things here. Week 1 is not just something to throw out in the trash. If anything, it's a good indicator of what teams want to do. It's what they're doing the first week of the season when theoretically their teams are the healthiest and they have all of the available resources they need to fully function as an offense. So not the case for all 32 NFL teams, but the Jags are a team that I think has their full arsenal, at their display right now at their full arsenal at their disposal, for week 1. They had everyone healthy and available that they wanted to incorporate into that offense, and Christian Kirk was the alpha receiver, 12 targets, hauled in 6, so only a 50% catch rate, a little bit underwhelming, but his usage was fantastic. I talked about this in a couple videos earlier this week. I loved how Doug Peterson and this offensive staff put Christian Kirk in motion. I think he's a perfect fit for this offense. He's a big slot build, a guy who can not only win vertically, but a guy who can run routes all over the field. Like I said, putting him in motion, pre-snap movements and shifts from Christian Kirk, and then just getting him the football. He was immensely efficient with the touches he was able to catch. 6 receptions, 117 yards, and I think this is a legit can-do-it-all wide receiver 2 play for fantasy football lineups, a player you could have drafted in the 7th round or maybe even later if he fell, depending on your league sizes. So definitely a draft steal, or at least that's how it looks after 1 week here. He also had 3 red zone targets, so was very high ranked in that category from Trevor Lawrence. Only hauled in 1 for a reception, but still very, very good things to see. No touchdowns from Christian Kirk this week, but that high volume of red zone opportunities as compared to his peers at the wide receiver position is, of course, something to always take a look at. So these are 5 wide receivers who, after week 1, I'm feeling a lot better about here. Not even, like I said, I wasn't feeling bad about really any player on this list except for A.J. Brown coming into week 1. I was just very, very skeptical about his situation, but I'm feeling a lot better about that now. Something that, can ease some of my worries. I ended up grabbing a couple late shares of him in leagues. In those leagues, I'm patting myself on the back for that. Very glad I did so. But Christian Kirk, Christian Kirk, Michael Pittman, Michael Thomas. We saw 2 Michaels there, and I got a little bit thrown off there. All of a sudden, Marquise came out. Gabe Davis and A.J. Brown. Those are the 5 wide receivers that we are rising up our rankings here as we head into week 2 fantasy football. I had a lot of fun making this episode. I think I'll do something similar to this next week. If you guys enjoyed, of course, let me know in the comment section below. Smash that like button. Let me know what other types of content styles you want to see from me next, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.